Well, we are back. It looks like Facebook bumped us off because we were using other people's music, even though we had the permission to use other people's music. So we'll do an edited version of this and repost it later tonight so that it can be played. And we'll let you know what was taken out. But it is important that this is what we're getting at, that you support us and you pass our message around and you let people know how important it is to take time for hemp. So this is actually part 2 now of the video that we started a few minutes ago of Steve Bloom, Muck Sticky, and some of the great musicians of the cannabis movement like Killin Time Band and Chief Greenbud. So we're going to take a commercial break. We have to here. When we come back, we're going to pick up. I'm going to talk to you about another friend of mine here at Time for Hemp.
Growsentia has developed Mammoth P, an organically derived soil inoculant that maximizes phosphorus and micronutrient cycling to maximize bud growth, increase yield, and enhance plant health. Mammoth P's patent-pending technology is OMRI certified. The increased levels of phosphorus and other micronutrients result in increased stem strength and a 16% increase in harvest yield. Mammoth P is effective in soil, soilless, and hydroponic systems. This biostimulant microbial product really works synergistically with any nutrient and fertilizers in your management and feeding regime. Incorporate Mammoth P into your feeding protocols as a supplement to any fertilizer program. Mammoth P is being used by growers, commercial, and hobbyists throughout the U.S. Go to mammothmicrobes.com to find a store near you or to order through one of the company's online partners. That's mammothmicrobes.com, scientifically proven to grow mammoth buds.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio. Please share us with your friends.
Well, I guess we won't be doing too many more music shows and featuring music artists of the cannabis movement here on Facebook, because I have written Facebook. I have told Facebook about our broadcast. We did I had an interview with Willie Nelson, which is featured in one of the earlier tapes. And Willie even said, you can use the song Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die in anything you do promoting Willie on the show. And Facebook doesn't care that Willie said we can use it. Facebook doesn't care that we have permission to play it. All Facebook cares about is just killing the message. So the expression "fuck Facebook" should ring a bell to a lot of people. So I wouldn't want to say that too out loud. It's a fucking family show. But sometimes I feel like just saying "fuck Facebook," and we're going to broadcast this shit through timeforhemp.com and everywhere else on the internet. But for some reason, places like YouTube has been killing not just my message, but the message of other people, as you know. See, there's too much light on that side. And but it's from the sun. Can't help it. And what they're trying to do is make it difficult for anything but corporate messages to be heard. And so that's why it's important that you share us with your friends, and you let your friends know how important it is to end cannabis prohibition and to be part of our growing audience. And our audience has been growing for a long time. And speaking of alternative news, one of the editors of Alternative News from a long time ago was some cat named Steve Bloom. That's Steve Bloom right there, right now. Steve Bloom used to be the editor of High Times Magazine, and that is an alternative message for people to turn to get their news. But, oddly enough, if you read something in High Times Magazine, it's pretty darn near accurate. It's not fake news. And actually, it's the kind of news you need to hear when the mainstream media is giving you fake news. So, but Steve's been reporting a long time about cannabis. He used to be a reporter on a journalist on the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. And his schedule became so busy, and I can understand why, that he had to move on to other things. And one of the reasons why he is so busy is because he's got this cool little website that's also called celebstoner.com. And let's see, I would encourage you, you find it mostly on Facebook. And I don't know why I'm promoting Facebook, it's a piece of crap. But I like Steve, and I like his work. And he also has a lot of cool messages, and he's got a lot of great information. He reviews movies, and he has interviews with a lot of celebrities, and he covers what's going on in TV and in movies and on Netflix and the internet, where there's entertainment to be found. So if you're looking to keep up to date with people in the marijuana cannabis movement who happen to be celebrities, I would encourage you to go to celebstoner.com. Well, actually, there's celebstoner.com, and there's also Celebstoner, the website, on Facebook. Celebstoner.com. Boom! And his website pops up, and it's, like I said, it's a pretty groovy website. And there's lots of great information there. You got iTunes, check out comedies on. You got legends and actors and athletes and comedians that are busy smoking or promoting or helping to make cannabis legal. Great stoner movies, sports, blogs, reviews, news, and home. I mean, gosh. And we're sure going to miss Glenn Campbell. Great voice. Truly a entertaining individual on so many different levels, not just in the field of music, but as a comedian. He used to have a TV show where he did comedy and music, and I've seen him do some acting as well. And as a human being, he was quite a giving spirit. So, but anyway, one of the things about why I'm talking about Steve Bloom is because Steve Bloom was a guest on my show back in 1991, and so we got that clip that we want to share for you, and we're going to end on that today. And I would encourage you to check out celebstoner.com and find Steve on Facebook. Let him know that you heard about his website, or that maybe even if you knew about it already, that we talked about him on our site, and send him our love, and that we appreciate him as an activist and encourage his hard work. So we're going to go to see Steve and I back when I had hair and Steve had hair back in 1991. And remember, the next time you see me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Thank you for joining us today. On the program, we were lucky enough to have a very interesting guest, and one who has been a leader in the hemp movement for a very long time. He's the news editor of High Times Magazine, Steve Bloom. Steve, thank you for coming on to the show today. Your voice in the movement has been heard for a long time, and High Times Magazine has had a direction on bringing information about the hemp plant and the hemp movement to the public in any aspect that they can. And at the same time, you've also had to deal with some problems over the past few years. We want to talk about all of that. First of all, the voice that you've put together, High Times Magazine, how did that all come about?
We're based in New York City. We're a fairly small operation, magazine publishing company that publishes High Times as well as a couple of other magazines. And we churn out a magazine every month like everybody else does, in our business. We're no different than most people when it comes to that. It's our job to write headlines, to assign, to bring in photos, to do all the legwork that it takes to get the whole magazine produced from beginning to end. That's what we do. We're all professionals at that. And then, by the way, we're also advocates. So that's what makes it unusual.
Okay, now the fact that you are advocates and you're out there with your neck on the line, being willing to put your face and your time and talent out there for people to see and to enjoy and learn from, has also caused you some problems. In New Orleans, you were subpoenaed into court, and a problem came up that many people know about, but not in full detail.
Well, we've documented it, in High Times, and it's been documented by the mainstream press, as we like to sort of call it, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. They've looked into our situation and what was going on there. And the situation pretty much was through a campaign to gut the indoor growing industry. They targeted High Times as well as the main information vehicle that has been spreading this news about growing indoors, and they wanted to snuff out the industry and get rid of High Times at the same time if they could. And they also targeted a magazine called Cincinnati Tips. And targeting meant that they started a grand jury. They indicted the president of a company called the Seed Bank out of that grand jury. They wanted information from High Times regarding a possible criminal conspiracy, connecting us with him. And we, of course, are connected in a business relationship. He advertises through High Times, but they seem to think it's something bigger and vaster than that. That we're, in the midst of, some sort of, major clandestine activities to distribute marijuana all over the world or something. It's just absurd. We're a magazine that talks about it.
Well, now with High Times being established as what many people say the Bible of the movement, I mean, you were there before anybody else was, it seems like. I mean, you were reporting and covering stories that people wouldn't pick up and cover. All right. So with you being out there and bringing that information home, that makes you an easy target. How do you protect yourself now? How do you go about getting advertisers? How do you go about raising funds to keep the magazine going?
Well, it's not fundraising. We're a magazine. We put in a magazine, people buy it. That's one major source of revenue. High Times has good sales, and we thank all our dedicated, loyal readers. High Times is hard to get sometimes. People always tell us that. All over the country, we get questions. Where can I get it? Where do I get it? People drive miles out of their way to get it. It's amazing. We're spirited by those stories, but it's just.
Yeah, I'm told that in some parts of America it's illegal for them to have the magazine in their store.
People think it is. That's the absurdity of it. They can be told that by somebody in some locality, and they'll believe it, and then we'll get these calls, oh, is High Times out of business, or High Times this? And we're constantly getting, not lately, but we have in the past, I mean, I can't remember one real recently, but we just generally get that kind of thing. And there's just all this disinformation that gets spread around about High Times that the DEA, our arch enemy, likes to constantly spread. They can just send it out into the media, it gets picked up, it gets spread around, in stories and wire service stories, and before you know it, it's just sprinkled into the consciousness of people, that so-and-so, has occurred, and it's not true.
Okay, now, when I've traveled across seas, I've been to Amsterdam and Germany, and I've been to, lucky enough to be a few places, courtesy of the United States Army, but I've had the chance to do that, and when I was across seas, I noticed that your magazine is there. Your magazine's in Amsterdam, your magazine's in England, your magazine's in Canada, your magazine's all across the coast.
False. Not in Canada.
Illegal
in Canada.
Oh, it's illegal in Canada, but it can, maybe through mail order, people are getting it.
Right.
So you are reaching an international audience. So therefore, you focus on the world scene. Now, there's been some changes in the laws regarding hemp, and there's been some people in, I think, Australia who are trying to bring hemp into a cash crop situation and to help feed the people down there. When you focus on the world scene, what directions do you go?
Australia, I don't know very much about it other than a proposal to the government there for a hemp project. We focus on a lot of the aspects of where hemp comes from around the world at this point. We're unearthing it at the same time all the activists are. We're all working at a feverish pace. The activists and the entrepreneurs, I must add, there's money out there, and people are trying to make it as well as spread the gospel about, hemp. So we're doing that, as well.
Yeah, and you're doing an excellent job. We'll be talking more with Steve Bloom right after this. you're actively seeking new advertisers, and you're also repositioning the magazine and putting it into a different direction. Isn't that right?
Well, the base of advertisers that the government scared off through the harassment of Operation Green Merchant, we've had to look elsewhere. And fortunately, as I said before, the readers have been able to sort of carry the load and very devoted and keep us afloat. But we need more advertising to really, run a better operation, overall. And we've been just looking out to, more obvious markets, the entertainment world, record companies, film companies, book companies. They are very reticent, but that's our little test. Each time we make a breakthrough. I don't know if I should show advertising, but this is an advertisement from Columbia Records, who said that they would not advertise in High Times at one point, we were told, because of our support of Normal.
Okay.
Yet somehow or other, this group persuaded them to have the advertisement because they wanted it. Some wall broke down very quickly for some strange reason, and it's a good wall for us.
Okay.
And we're hoping there'll be more of that. Just, getting out in the community, people who've been afraid to touch us.
Now, over the years, your content of your magazine has gotten stronger and has become more focused. And I believe you've even been responsible for breaking news, bringing new information to light that kind of rattled some trees.
Well, our main claim to fame in recent history is all hemp information that we've uncovered. We did a big story on JFK recently that is sort of will become a major motion picture. No, it's coming. The movie's coming out about JFK. I mean, that kind of information. We jump on the stuff that's not told. And that's where we see ourselves as the alternative press at this point, because there's so many angles. Sometimes maybe a little too heavy on the conspiracy side. We have to sort of rule a few out, in editorial meetings. But the hemp information is a grand conspiracy theory. When you really dig into it all, and that's what's, I think, ultimately really fascinated us, that it's so deep.
And you've also been attributed, or your magazine has been attributed to helping to bring a focus to the hemp movement, like an umbrella where people can all get to know each other and interact. As you continue to grow, how do you plan to incorporate that particular
Well, we want them to
attitude?
start advertising. That's the other side, I guess. But they know that. I don't have to tell them through this medium. But we were hoping to create a hemp industry, in a sense, that will benefit us as well. I don't think that's mercenary. We have to survive, and just like the previous companies who are no longer advertising, although there are a few, the lighting systems and stuff like that, the grow companies, so to speak, garden, stores and so on. They have come back in drips and drabs, but we need to look elsewhere. And there's a whole hemp industry that's waiting to sort of really blossom. You see it here in this building downstairs, the whole row of people with hemp, the hemp merchants, and it's pretty amazing to watch, how it is expanding. And there really is money in it, I think, and people are going to make money from it too, and that'll be good. It'll help fund the movement and get, we need more money here in this whole movement, and hopefully it'll get spread around the right ways, so it's just not a few entrepreneurs,
And when people think of High Times magazine, they think of it sometimes as strictly a marijuana magazine. And there's a lot more to it than that now, isn't there?
Well, we really are the only marijuana magazine, so we'll still, I don't mind that banner. Kind of changing the terminology somewhat to hemp or whatever, but within that, voice of the counterculture, we have a little slogan. And then people ask, well, what's the counterculture, or is there a counterculture? And we think there is. We've uncovered that as well. People don't want to know about hemp tour. They don't want to know there are people all over the country. That's a countercultural movement of people doing that, and it gets local coverage, but it doesn't get any national.
Okay.
It's not reported like they'd rather report in the New York Times a few weeks ago that there's a whole decline in marijuana use and so on and so forth, and they don't want to acknowledge that there's a whole rise in a movement of people who think that it should be legalized, and that doesn't indicate decline. They don't want to recognize that there is a counterculture of people out there. It's just not as huge as it was in the '60s. It doesn't make as good pictures.
Okay.
The crowds aren't big enough for them or something.
Okay. But you're still making a change in people's lives. You've occasionally picked up the banner in somebody's world who's been arrested or been treated unjustly, and with the power of the press, shall we say, you've corrected an injustice. We'd like to discuss a couple of those stories when we come back after this. We're here today with High Times editor Steve Bloom. Steve, as we said earlier, the power of the press can make a difference in personal lives. Now, you, on a personal example, have shown by personal example how that can be achieved and some of the things that you've done, and then you've written about it.
Yeah, there was one situation where I was arrested last year in New Jersey, and it really put the drug war right in my face. You know, we get so much information to High Times from people who are arrested all the time, but it's detached, you know, from the reality of it happening. Well, what happened to me, you know? And what happened, kind of in brief, is I was driving at night in New Jersey, speeding. And I was pulled over for a speeding violation, and that just wasn't enough. You know, I was driving a car that they presumed guilty, an old Firebird, 70s kind of car, fit some sort of profile, I'm told. And I was just coming back from a Dead show, so I kind of looked the part. But you know, so once he sized me up, you know, it's like, we're getting this guy out of the car. And to be honest, I had been stopped one other time in New Jersey within that year, you know, and so it's like, oh no, here we go again, same damn car. You know, whatever. And I hadn't had the car very long either. Just somebody, you know, just the way that happened. It was a great car, but for some reason they hated it in New Jersey. And so they brought me out of the car and proceeded to search. And since it happened the previous time as well, I knew they were going to the pat search. And they pat you down, which really is a major violation right there, you know. But they're allowed to do this for some reason, you know. And first of all, why are they taking me out of the car? That's the whole point. I mean, in my mind, it's like, why did that even start, you know? As a necessity. That's the change in life from, you know, my time when I was younger, first learning how to drive and maybe having a speeding violation and you get your ticket and that's it, and you go to now, you know, this whole hysterical response to a simple traffic violation.
And even if you get out of the car without being told to, they'll put a gun to you.
Well, then of course it gets worse. You know, my story is not as bad as, you know, a lot of others, I'm sure you can hear, but they did take me out of the car. They found a pipe in my pouch. And I was arrested for the pipe, simply for the pipe. Okay. No quantity of anything other than, you know, what was called less than 50 grams, which they tested the pipe to find little flakes of, you know, trace. But in the meanwhile, I'm arrested, handcuffed, fingerprinted, the whole fucking thing. The
whole thing.
The whole thing. I'm sorry. I'll do that again. I'm cuffed. Fingerprinted, you know, arrested, taken to the station house, the whole thing, you know, and this is all for a pipe. So I was let out in about an hour. You know, it wasn't the worst experience of my life, I suppose. They didn't hit me, they didn't do anything, you know, they didn't beat me, nothing happened terrible like that. It was sort of a state of unreality when I went back to my car and I just drove home.
Okay.
I just got arrested. Oh, okay. And I'm out of my own, you know, recognizance, and now I have to do the whole court thing. Okay. So I went to a lawyer, and a friend of mine who's a New Jersey lawyer, and she decided to take the case. She's a corporate lawyer who really didn't have the time to do it, and so she's a real great hero to me, having taken this case pro bono. And did some research. We found some interesting precedents and used it to overturn the search. Okay. And we lost in the first round, and we won in the second round on the state level, going to Trenton. Had to get through one round because it was a small town that just no way they were going to slap the cops' wrists. And then we had to get out of that town and go to the state house where they didn't care about that little town's concerns. Apparently, we got a cool judge. You know, they got the judge suite of Trenton or something. You know, who really heard our story and was actually disappointed the state didn't really try and defend themselves very well. They thought, oh, they'll just and they came with a real lame approach to not even trying to like sell that I was really guilty of anything. Just he did this. I didn't do anything. I moved my hand like this to get my wallet to my pouch, and he thought I was going for a gun. It's just all this.
So from firsthand experience.
Yeah, they'll make up anything. And the hemp tour people have told me, well, and I've learned, you can't drive around anymore with, anything wrong with your car. That anything they'll pick you off. That's the police state stuff that we're dealing with. That's scary, and I think people realize that on a day-to-day level. An average citizen now, I think it's really seeping in. They realize. I mean, except for the the hysterical people who are in favor of the drug war, who are of the few, but they bark loudest. Most people still, I think, are opposed to that kind of encroachment on their freedoms. I mean, the average American citizen, So when it comes out of drug-related behavior, which people think is no big deal in the first place, I have a lot of average Americans, and then they're getting stopped on top of it. They're getting really incensed. Okay. It's costing them money, obviously, as well. It's crimping their whole, financial. Life. It could be any number of things. My case is such a small little situation, but it did teach me how you have to fight back and what it costs to fight back. My lawyer said, it would have cost so much money, and I realized I probably wouldn't be able to afford it. Right. So the whole system is not set up very well to fight back.
We've only got about a minute or two left, and there's a great number of journalists in America who like to be able to have a forum, I'm sure, as yours, and be able to voice their opinion as you do, but the way the laws are written and the way the harassment in various communities are presented to people, they have a tendency to withdraw from having the courage to do that. What would you say to these journalists now dealing with the rights that we have in America? How would you
individually? I mean, in their local.
Because we need journalists to stand up and speak out.
Well, I guess they must have problems from publication to publication, depending on the editorial slant. Where do they want to go? With their editorial focus. I'm amazed. The amount of, say, hemp editorials you see all over the country, drug legalization editorials. Again, you see from real average, the main daily papers all across America. It's not a word that seems to be having a hard time getting spread. It is fanning out all over the place, but I'm sure it's a tough sell. Some places you probably have to just pitch it real hard, like anybody else would. Come at it in almost sort of a business-like approach. Quality manuscript on something that says your point of view. You can probably get it in as guest editorials. I don't know. I don't think it's that hard. I mean, we are somewhat of an island right now in the world of publishing. We're doing something that nobody quite is doing, and sometimes that excites us, and other times we'd rather have a few more friends. Understand what we're doing. We're really not bad guys. I don't know why the publishing industry a lot of times doesn't lend more support towards what we do. We're like the stepchild or something, and they want to just they want to watch from afar, to see how we are. We're like the guinea pigs, in this First Amendment experiment or something. And it's like, let them deal with it. Well, we are dealing with it. We have a good lawyer, and we have the resources apparently to get as far as we've gone. They haven't sunk us. They would like to have, and they haven't. And everybody thinks, why don't they just come up and bust us all or something?
It's not that easy.
They got nothing on us.
It's not that easy. All you're doing is
they got nothing on
the
us.
truth.
They were taking pictures of us the other day at Washington.
I'd like to say on behalf of the members of the hemp movement, and I have spoken to many of them, they're very appreciated for what you are doing and the fight that you're making possible and the way you're raising their voices. It's been an honor to have you on our program. I'd like to have you back again sometime.
Okay, that sounds great. I want to thank everybody who is those devoted followers of High Times. I mean, they're amazing.
More after this.
Look at all that money, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for help! Yeah!
Have you ever had a problem with overcooking your cannabis oil? You probably wanted to rip your hair out when you burned off all the THC, right? I even cried one time when my brownies failed to make a good impression at the party. Well, I stopped crying when I found Magical Butter. Magical Butter is a device with a microprocessor-controlled program sequencer. It was designed by a scientist and a chemist to precisely extract the benefits of various herbs. Magical Butter easily makes botanical butter, oils, tinctures, lotions, sauces, and more. Magical Butter heats your oil and your herbs at the perfect temperature every time. Check us out at magicalbutter.com because it's magical. Okay, there's a lot of science and chemistry involved, but it sure works like magic.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.